So please help me welcome the founder and CEO of PactSafe, Brian Powers.
Okay, so PactSafe is the cloud's legal system of record. Before I can really explain what that means, I'm going to kind of walk you through why we exist by giving you some examples of how a lawyer can hack your terms of service. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, where'd I get my hat, right? You're thinking, what's he talking about? Lawyers can't hack. And you're right, for the most part. Lawyers are traditionally technological Luddites. I can say that because I'm a lawyer. So if lawyers in the room take offense, sorry. So think of it this way. You have your shiny new tech startup. You've cracked 1 million users. You're really pumped. You come to the next Verge event, and you're all excited to talk to the hunkler about it. And the hunkler walks up, and he's like, hey, brah, what's up with your startup? But instead of saying, we cracked 1 million users, you have to kind of shrug down and say, we got hacked by a lawyer. And what does that mean, right? That means that you've been sued. Your terms of service, which are the gate to your company, they are the first line of defense from a legal dispute. It defines your relationship with your customers. They're very important things. They've been completely obliterated, right? Most of the time you think about, okay, hacking, the Russians hacked my website, there was a data breach, whatever. Lawyers can hack your website. So, one example, let's say you put a link to your terms of service and you put it in there real sneaky and you can't really see it. Maybe it's down below a button. That's not going to work. Hacked, you're done, right? Okay, so maybe you didn't do that, and you've had all these different versions over the course of 2 or 3 years, and you've made changes, and lawyer says, we're coming after you. Well, you agreed to version 4 of my terms of service, and they say, all right, prove it. Well, we have this data point. No, prove it. It's very difficult to do. It's not as easy as just pulling out a copy of a contract from a file drawer. Okay, so let's say you can prove what version. Lawyer's going to say, well, prove that my client accepted it. Prove that, if I'm a class action lawyer, prove that my 7 million clients accepted it. I'm not really talking into the mic, am I? You should. I should? Yeah. Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay.
Audio is recorded.
Was it accepted? Yes, it was accepted. They checked the box. Prove it. Well, we have this data point here and there. No. Prove that the box was checked. It's very difficult to do. You might be able to mine some data to prove it, but it's still very difficult to do. And then finally, if you're updating your terms all the time, you have to give people notice that you're doing that. Say you want to enforce an agreement that was updated, on a certain date. Lawyer's going to say, prove it, and you might not be able to prove it. The crux of the problem here is that these are real contracts, and they're not treated like real contracts. Consumers, people that are clicking on these things, don't think of them as real contracts. Who reads terms of service when they sign up for Facebook or a product? Raise your hand and admit you're a liar. Liar, no way.
Sometimes.
Right? So consumers don't think of them as real contracts. Unfortunately, for the last 15 years, businesses have not either. And it's a major problem. This slideshow right here, this slide right here is not a slide of logos of companies that use PactSafe. It's a slide of companies that wish they did, because all of them have lost because they could not prove, enforce something about the legal terms on their website, their app, or whatever. Uber, this just happened to 2 weeks ago. That 42 million number you see right there was from Safeway, because they did some really dumb things with their terms and lost a $42 million class action lawsuit. These are some of our customers, and this is not going to happen to them because they're customers of PactSafe. So what do? We are a legal system of record, an API, that plugs into a website, mobile app, makes it as easy to prove, update, do all the things that you'd think about normally with contracts, to those terms of service, privacy policies, terms of use, all that stuff that exists on websites, apps, connected devices, all that stuff. It's very simple. We have a dashboard for lawyers Lawyer goes into the dashboard, creates an agreement, updates different versions of the agreements. Developers we have an API, plugs into website, app, connected devices, wherever. Once it's connected, those contracts are zapped out. It's some sort of technological magic that's beyond my lawyer brain, but it borderlines on legal witchcraft right there. It goes out, we track everything that comes back in, right? So now you have a dashboard where a lawyer can just go in, they click a button, and they generate a contract, which is the same thing as pulling a contract out of a file drawer, a PDF, whatever. Now you have your enforceable contract. There's lots of other stuff that we do that is more applicable to the enterprise, but at its core, that's what we do. So what we've accomplished so far, we have 100 plus customers. We're doing 600,000 plus API calls per month. We're under contract to track and manage upwards of 24 bazillion unique signers per month or per year. That's a signer for us is somebody that's going to click on an agreement and accept it. And we also have an outbound contracting tool that works seamlessly with our API that allows call centers and companies that might be bringing in customers outside of just their website to have a seamless contracting agreement or experience. So what's our long-term vision here, right? So right now we're the only product that exists in this space that has its challenges. There's an educational aspect to that. It makes it hard to sell. But once we get in there, people love it. Right now, we sell mostly to e-commerce and SaaS companies, but this form of contracting, it's already become the most prolific form of contracting on the planet. People click and check boxes to accept legal agreements more than they're signing things and with paper, more than they're doing squiggly black lines with like a DocuSign or something like that. And it's becoming, every company is becoming a technology company, right? So this form of contracting is going to proliferate. It's going to become more common, and we want to be the go-to system of record and API for that moving forward. Our ask tonight is we're launching I don't even know how many people at Verge are still startups, but lots, right? So our product is mostly applicable and addresses most pain points at the enterprise level, okay? So it's typically priced out of the range of a startup, but it's still something very important for a startup. And I know if there's startups in the room, if you have terms, you probably cut and paste them from somewhere that have no application to your website. Don't do that. You know, call a lawyer or something. But next week, we're launching a startup program for PactSafe. You can access it now. This is the first time we've announced it. We'll officially announce it next week. It's at PactSafe.com/startups. And you can get free access to our application, our API, if you meet a certain number of criteria, one of which is that you're a member of Verge. And yeah, so if you have questions about that, find me, find anybody on my team. The only other guy here wearing a hat is also from PactSafe. It's not as cool as my hat, but yeah, so that's PactSafe.
Yay!
Good job, man. I think you're lucky that I forgot to turn on my timer.
How far was that?
I have a pretty good internal timer on what 5 minutes is, and I'm like, why hasn't... Oh. So, good pitch.
That was not more than 5 minutes.
It was a good pitch. We were with you 100% of the way. Thank you for launching that startups program. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We use PactSafe on the Verge website. You can see the terms at the bottom. Really cool company. Let's go. Dan, can we start with you this time? Can you kick us off? Everyone else has had a chance to start.
Sure. So I'm going to ask the lawyer the lawyer question, which is, as you get in the middle of all of these contractual agreements, what is your liability to the customers using your service?
So we don't we can't control how somebody implements our product.
Right.
So we're a system of record. We track data points, we track agreements, and so we'll represent that all that stuff is accurate, but we do not say that your implementation of our product is going to create some sort of legally binding agreement. At some point down the road as we grow, we've talked about providing a certification program that we would have underwritten by some big giant insurance company where we could go in, say, okay, is your implementation done? Yes. So we go in, we look at it, and we say, okay, you've met our 10 criteria to be certified. Pay us $10,000. We'll give you certification, or whatever. Maybe it's 40,000 or 400. I don't know. And now they're insured against that to a certain degree.
Okay, great, thank you.
But that's the extent of it right now.
That's a great question. Susan?
So tell me about selling into the enterprise and what that looks like, because that's a long sales cycle. There's lots of decision makers, and and you're a growing small company. So how do you manage that process?
Yeah, it's a challenge. We hustle. I mean, it's I was a corporate lawyer, so that sales cycle was pretty damn easy and quick. So this has been kind of trial by fire, but first step was hiring a team of people a lot smarter than me that knew about that stuff. Mission accomplished there. Some of them are back here. So, it's a long, complicated sales cycle, and it's complicated even more because it's a new product. It's, people don't know that a product like this, a platform like this even exists. So it's been kind of a challenge going into a company and figuring out, okay, well, you have this pain, but maybe that pain is decentralized and there's symptoms of it all over your organization. So we've started to figure out how to kind of extract those symptoms and say, you have a big problem, and then, scare the crap out of them, and they're like, yeah, we need PactSafe.
So who is your buyer persona? Is it the internal legal team, or is it the web development team?
Both. Usually legal, though. So most of our prospecting efforts and marketing efforts are to legal. We're starting next month to do a pretty concerted effort to market to the development community and making this kind of the go-to legal API for apps and everything. We're like, okay, you're building something, you need a legal layer to your app, and nothing like that exists right now. So we think that's a huge opportunity for us. We started with lawyers because I'm a lawyer, and that was the path of least resistance. So we'll see how it goes when we start really selling to the development community.
Thank you.
But we're hopeful.
Like I said, growing like a rocket ship.
Yeah.
Joanna, you want to bring us home?
Yeah, so it's a new category. That's cool, right? That's what I think investors look for, is that something that's truly disruptive and that you're passionate about. But what is that kind of total addressable market? How do you categorize that? And then what does it look like in a few years with this category?
Yeah, great question. So we don't have our part of that category. So we sit on the fringe of what's called digital transaction management, and that's about a $20 billion market. And that's traditionally occupied by contract management systems, DocuSign, EchoSign, and we do a little bit of all the things that they do, but we do it in a way that they don't. For example, if you want to go, everybody knows what DocuSign is, right? The squiggly line company, that's what we call them. They don't like that, but if you want to put a thing that looks like paper on the screen and put a squiggly line on and sign it, that's what DocuSign is. But if you want to go sign up and use DocuSign's product and become a customer, do you know how you sign their contract? You sign their contract not with the squiggly line from DocuSign, but you check a box. You click a button, and now you're a customer of theirs. So where was I going with that? I just like telling that story. Yeah, so yeah, it got off on a tangent there. Not good. I'm taking up too much of Matt's stage time here. But so
It was a good story.
right, it's
It
a
was a
great
good story.
story. Right. So addressable market, we don't really know yet. But it's a big market. But when you're creating a space like this and creating a new category, we've tried to kind of back in and say, okay, well, to start out is we're trying to be, this legal API for the e-commerce and the SaaS world. How many e-commerce companies are there? How many SaaS companies are there? How many people are engaging in these types of agreements and then backing into a number like that? So far, that method has not resonated very well with investors that we've talked to. They tend to say, okay, well, what's the real market? And so we back into that $20 billion digital transaction market because we do think that there's room for what our product does outside of just powering click wrap agreements on e-commerce sites and SaaS sites. So that's kind of how we figure that out. But coming up with market sizes is, it's only important if you're talking to an investor that cares about it. We just build product and sell it.
Want more secrets from inside the minds of entrepreneurs and innovators around the world? Subscribe to our YouTube channel here and click the link below. We'll send you our best interviews and strategies for growing your business.